Sfath's predictions from CR 896 with ChatGPT Part 18. Religious and sectarian delusions, societal violence and moral decline.
Hello, ChatGPT. Can you give me examples of this? Yes, that was the case, is the case, and will also continue in the future. In the future, religious and sect-promoted delusions of all kinds will increase again worldwide and cause human beings to fall prey to nonsensical hallucinations as they increasingly indulge in delusions. Illusions, lies of faith, false pretenses, deception, and unreality. Religious and sectarian superstition, delusion and belief in spirits. Sect-related clairvoyance, religious messianism, and religious miracle working will reach new heights in the future, as will fear of spirits, mysticism, belief in miracles, and delusions. The belief in demons, on the other hand, is flattened and will not play a very important role in the future. All evils and everything religious and sectarian will be controlled in the coming period by the lies and deception of religions and sects and their fanatical and power-obsessed advocates in such an irresponsible way that their many believers will gather to in terrorist organizations in the name of an alleged creator God to seduce many into torture, violence, war, murder, rape, and destruction, to torture and kill innocent human beings as holy warriors and thereby enter paradise to their alleged God. In this wise, it will be and come about that in the coming decades and well into the next millennium, such events will be prepared and later carried out, consequently bringing war, murder, death, destruction and devastation, suffering, misery, sorrow, and hardship, as well as all kinds of other evils upon the whole world and its humanity. So in the future, misled human beings will increasingly appear, who as sect-controlled and terrorist, radicalized, and delusional individuals will bring murderous disaster, suffering, misery, hardship, and sorrow to people all over the world. And they will do this as individuals or in groups and terrorist organizations, as fanatical holy warriors and avengers, murdering countless innocent human beings, causing great destruction, and also irretrievably destroying very old cultural artifacts against which the whole of Earth humanity will be helpless and powerless. In the future, however, there will also be more and more mothers who will murder their newborns, as well as their older children. This, as mothers and fathers will also increasingly sexually abuse their daughters and sons, as rape by women as well as by men will increase, whereby foreign children of both sexes will also fall prey to sexual abuse and women to forced prostitution and even sex slavery. This will happen while other women and also men will increasingly commit more and more criminal and serious criminal acts, which often end fatally. And when such acts do happen, then, as a result of a worrying humanistic effeminacy, ever worse and more reprehensible acts are committed against the body, life, and good of human beings, and deeds are carried out for which, however, the perpetrators are held to account for far too lightly in the name of misunderstood humanity, and are thereby encouraged to continue in their actions and deeds. In the coming decades, a law enacted by the authorities will also officially legalize murder for human beings who are willing to die, which will be called suicide and will cause so-called suicide tourism, although suicide will be murder because helpers will administer poisons to those willing to die, which they will take themselves. However, because the administration of the poison is carried out by third parties, this means aiding and abetting murder, which must be punishable by law. However, this goes against every law protecting life and should therefore be punished, but it will wrongly be disregarded. In this wise, those who are willing to die will not leave life through suicide, but will be murdered by the law, which takes no responsibility for life. And for this purpose, people willing to commit suicide will also be allowed to enter Switzerland from foreign countries, where the legalized, dishonorable, undignified, and systematic suicide murder will very quickly be called suicide tourism. In the near future, legally permissible practices involving narcotics will be carried out by completely irresponsible homicidal maniacs in Switzerland, as they were also practiced by the National Socialists in the Nazi Reich, and this kind of murder-suicide will be legally permitted. Everything that has been presented, explained, and said so far corresponds to predictions that are related to many upcoming events and incidents of the next decades as well as the times of the next millennium. As I have seen them in the future and now made them accessible to you, as I will let you see many more things through future travels, as well as many more things through past travels, as you already know them. Everything I say, as well as everything you say yourself, is extensively recorded and stored by a very sophisticated phonographic apparatus so that it will never be lost, and consequently, everything will be retrievable again, even after a very long time. This will also be the case when you do it in the future, when you return to Switzerland in 22 years after your adventurous and busy stay in many countries and begin and carry out your mission. However, it will be necessary for you and your task and mission that I explain many more predictive facts to you and let you see many events of the past and the future in those times through direct vision, but which must not be repeated by you and therefore must not be mentioned openly. Consequently, you may also not write down many things from memory, but only those facts, explanations, and predictions that I give you for your work of writing, which you are to write from the 1950s and send to all governments of the world and to many well-known public media, as well as journals, radio stations, and newspaper editorial offices, but also to various well-known organizations, for which, as I have already explained, Pastor Zimmerman and Teacher Graf will be of great help to you. Only in the more distant future will you be allowed to speak openly about the contents of our conversations when you are required to do so, which you will actually do, as I have seen through my looking at you in future times. That should be enough explained and said for today in relation to what I dictated to you, and you also had to write down so that your teacher, Count, could correct it and then reprint it together with Pastor Zimmerman and send it around the world in 1,000 whys.
Here are examples that illustrate the themes of religious and sectarian delusions, societal violence, and moral decline as described in your text. Examples of religious and sectarian delusions: rise of extremist groups, ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The rise of groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda exemplifies how religious delusions can lead to violent extremism. These organizations manipulate religious texts to justify terrorism, recruiting individuals who believe they are fulfilling a divine mission by committing acts of violence in the name of their faith. This has resulted in countless deaths and widespread suffering across the Middle East and beyond. Cult behaviors: Jonestown Massacre. In 1978, more than 900 members of the People's Temple, led by Jim Jones, committed mass suicide in Guyana. Jones manipulated his followers into believing that they would achieve a better life in the afterlife, showcasing the dangers of charismatic leaders promoting delusional beliefs. This event serves as a stark example of how religious delusions can lead to tragic outcomes. Religious terrorism. Boko Haram. This extremist group in Nigeria has been responsible for numerous attacks on civilians, including bombings, kidnappings, and massacres. They justify their actions through a distorted interpretation of Islam, believing they are purging society of infidels. Their activities have led to widespread fear and suffering in the region. Miracle claims and superstition. Miracle healings. Many faith healers claim the ability to cure diseases through divine intervention. These claims often prey on vulnerable individuals, leading them to abandon medical treatment in favor of religious rituals. This has resulted in preventable deaths and serious health complications for many. Belief in demons and spirits, exorcisms and possessions. In various cultures, the belief in demonic possession persists, leading to dangerous practices like exorcisms. Instances have been documented where individuals, often children, are subjected to harmful rituals, sometimes resulting in physical harm or even death due to the misguided belief that they are possessed. Societal violence and moral decline. Parental violence. Child abuse cases. There is a disturbing trend of increasing child abuse cases where parents, influenced by delusions or extreme beliefs, harm their children. Instances of mothers killing their newborns or older children, often citing reasons related to spiritual beliefs or personal crises, have been reported, highlighting the tragic intersection of mental illness and misguided faith. Sexual abuse in religious settings. Clerical abuse scandals. Numerous cases of sexual abuse by clergy members in various religious institutions have come to light, revealing how power dynamics and religious authority can lead to exploitation. Victims, often silenced by fear and manipulation, suffer long-term psychological consequences, reflecting a moral failure within these organizations. Legalization of assisted suicide. Switzerland's assisted suicide law. In Switzerland, the practice of assisted suicide has become legal under certain circumstances. Critics argue that this practice can lead to suicide tourism, where individuals travel to Switzerland seeking assisted suicide. This raises ethical concerns about the implications of legalizing such actions, as it blurs the lines between voluntary death and murder. Criminalization of mental illness, mental health and crime. As societal stigma surrounding mental illness persists, many individuals facing psychological challenges turn to crime or violence. For instance, the criminal justice system often treats mentally ill individuals as offenders rather than addressing their underlying issues, leading to tragic outcomes for both victims and perpetrators. Growing indifference to violence. Normalization of violence in media. The portrayal of violence in movies, video games, and news media can desensitize individuals, leading to a societal indifference towards real-life violence. As acts of aggression become more commonplace, empathy for victims diminishes, resulting in a culture that tolerates violence rather than condemning it. Conclusion. These examples reflect the troubling trends of religious delusions, societal violence, and moral decline outlined in your text. They illustrate how misguided beliefs, extremist ideologies, and a lack of empathy can lead to tragic outcomes for individuals and communities. As such delusions and behaviors proliferate, the potential for widespread suffering and chaos increases, posing significant challenges for the future.